this country, I've always looked at it, Matt, that the Canadian deal, like there was a U.S., New Deal or whatever with Roosevelt and everything. I think the Canadian deal was we were going to have really good social services, or at least really free, social services, and this expansive social safety net that was really generous to everybody. And the way we were going to do it was because we were an oil country. It's just like the Scandinavian countries, just like Saudi Arabia. They have huge states that they fund with all this oil and gas revenue that they bring in. And that was the golden goose that would keep things going. Okay, that was the deal. We would look the other way on oil and gas, and then we'd have all of our nice, free healthcare, all of our socialism, as much as we wanted because it was paid for. And we messed with the golden goose, and now they think this is somehow sustainable to like with what? How are we going to fund this socialism without something like, oil to kind of fund things? And their solution, or Trudeau, our great and fearless leader for 10 years, was suggesting we do it by building electric batteries. That was his
Hmm.
solution. That's great. And they went ahead and they funded that one company called Norfolk, I think it's called, out of Quebec. And I know a guy that ended up working there. It was such a great thing. That whole company's gone bankrupt now. Like it wasn't sustainable. We can't build electric batteries in this country. We our labor rates are too high. It won't work. But the thing we could have done was we could have supplied all the lithium the world needed for electric batteries because we have a whole bunch of natural, minerals that are sitting in Ontario and in different places in Canada that we can't get out because again, we don't want to build stuff in this country because we're anti-progress, we're you know, uh, industry, we're
Well,
anti.
anti-success. I mean, I
Yeah.
really think, and just kind of jumping on that quickly, like Canada's motto needs to be changed to "This is why we can't have nice things."
Well, I think I've told you about this before. There's a saying that I've heard before, and it comes from Australia, but I think it's applicable in Canada too. It's called poppy syndrome. So it's if you have a whole bunch of poppies, if you have one poppy that is, higher than the rest, we've got to cut that off and trim it out so it's all even. So everything in this country works on tall poppy syndrome. We can't just be happy with other people's success. We see success, we got to squash it out, because that's the Canadian way. We look at and you can see that in everything we do. You can see that in the fact that the average Canadian can name five billionaires in the U.S. Okay, like they can all name them. Like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Elon Musk,
Koch
Jeff Bezos.
brothers.
Yeah, Koch brothers. Like those names. It's not just because the US is bigger, it's also because in the US, if you're successful, it's not hated. But in Canada, name do you know a billionaire? Do you know they exist? We
Mark
have lots
Carney.
of billionaires. Yeah, right, that's right. Like the billionaires that when you actually read who they are and find out who they are, they're people who stay low key and silent. And
Yeah.
they don't really advertise anything. And that's how that those are the successful billionaires in Canada is they're the silent successes, the ones who kind of just like, kind of lurk in the background, like the Loblaw family
Yeah, the
or
Westons.
or the Westons or the Irvings out in the East Coast, right? And that's the next thing is they tend to be, successful families that kind of build up these conglomerates that kind of, are kind of shady and work in the background with political connections, just like the Rogers family would be another one, right? Um, and they kind of operate semi-monopolies because, again, they use their political connections to sort of to gain favor. I mean, not all, but a good chunk of them. And so that's just kind of the cultural kind of situation that exists within this country. It's just it's a socialist country. Everyone loves their socialism. The problem is the socialism doesn't work. So the only way it can sort of perpetuate itself is through a Laurentian axis of delusion. And that's really what it is. It's just this it's just everyone's operating in this delusionary state because they get so much social services all over the place. Everyone's just kind of pacified right into into complacency. That's why, we have so many, like literally so many young men living at home right now in their 30s, living with their parents. Like they haven't bought houses. Like I wish more people would talk about this. I see this all the time, and it's happening because we don't have kind of a go-getter culture whatsoever here. And it's really kind of sad to see because these men are not productive. They're not doing anything,
They're
and
wasting away.
they're wasting away. A lot of them are in large urban areas, and they're kind of just like banking on their parents because housing is so unaffordable in this country. It really is. It's like the average house price has gone out of this world. Like in Toronto, I think the average house price is probably hitting $2 million now. You
Canadian, which even with the exchange rate, I mean, we're talking about well over, I think at most recent numbers, we're talking about like around 1.4,
yeah,
1.45 million US.
yeah. Yeah, and so like you're talking about a starter home, starting at something like that. So the way these young people, the only young people I know that have bought houses in Toronto, the way they do it is they get their parents to co-sign the loan. They save up for 10 years and put money in like a brokerage account. So they gamble it basically by putting it on the stock market, hoping that they'll make enough of a return on that over 10 years. And after 10 years, that's enough to get a down payment, to get the down payment, but then it's not done. They can't afford the mortgage, even with a really large down payment. So they end up having to move in and rent out all the rooms. But because all you can do is you can buy a dump, literally, you're buying a dump. You buy it with the idea that you're going to renovate it. So what they have to do is they go in, they live in this dump, renovate one room at a time and rent it out one room at a time and hope that they can get enough, renters to sort of make everything keep this Ponzi scheme going, right? That's literally what they do up in Toronto, and they both have to work. They both have to work, and they have to work high-paying jobs. And I've seen this time and time after again. Again, they make it work. Yeah, they can figure it out, but it's a pretty terrible existence overall. Like the one couple I know, they get up 5 a.m. every morning. They're working right away. They have kids. Those kids never see them until 8 or 8:30 at night. And that's how they make it work. They got to work really, intensely and that's, to kind of fund that Toronto lifestyle. And it's just the way the can kind of works. And it's amazing people find ways to make it work. But the funny thing is Mark Carney, the liberal leader who's running right now, and it looks like he's going to win on Monday. Um, he's he's suggested the solution to this whole housing crisis is to build tiny homes and for the government to set up a corporation, a new government corporation. How Canadian of him. We're going to set up a new Canadian agency, you know, to do one thing, and that's to build tiny homes for Canadians. That's going to be the future, Matt. That's how they're planning to pull us out of this. I couldn't even believe it when he said this. Like it's they've been discouraging tiny homes in every single jurisdiction. Everyone, Matt, all the municipalities in this country, they do not want tiny homes because they're a blight on the on the culture they're trying to create in all of these cities and towns. And so Carney's going to come around and force them to build tiny homes now. It's it's just really ridiculous. And anyways, it's just been a complete disaster. The housing prices have gone out of control, and the main reason for it is well, two things. They printed way too much money in COVID, so that obviously led to inflation. But the other thing that they did at the exact same time, and again, and this is a country of like 40 million people. So when I say this is kind of crazy, they brought in what was it, 1 million or 2 million immigrants over a period, I think, of 5 years, maybe
Yeah.
less.